And there goes the YouTube stream. Yeah, we were stunned that the tickets sold out. We thought, well, 450 people will never come to this thing. So we just bought the 500-person Zoom plan. And then it sold out and people were like, how do I watch the talks? So
there are talks I can't watch because I missed it, because I missed a ticket on something as well. So don't worry.
Oh, no. We recorded all of them. You'll get
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, for sure. We put up Lorna's opening keynote already, which was amazing. I'll send you a link to that. All right. So soon people should be able to enter. There we go. Here they come. Hi, everyone. So we'll just give it a moment for folks to find their way in. Let me make sure the YouTube stream is working. Yep, perfect. All right, we already have people watching on YouTube.
Oh, wow. Hi.
Famous, yeah.
That's exciting.
Right. Yeah, my few like linguist Australia friends were very excited about this. So.
Oh, great.
Right.
This is when you tell the kids at school, I'm on YouTube.
Hi, folks. If while we wait, you want to let us know where you're joining from. I see a few familiar names, but everybody else, let us know where you are in the world. We've had folks from all over at these talks. We've got folks tuning in from the Philippines at 1 in the morning. We've had folks tuning in from Nigeria and Mexico and Canada. And so you get to talk to just about everybody today. Tuning in from New York City at 7 p.m. That's a reasonable hour. Hi, Olivia. Yeah, that's always the challenge of coordinating an international online event. Like, who are we going to ask to tune in at midnight? Who gets to tune in at a reasonable hour? All right, just give it one more minute and then we can get started whenever y'all are ready. People are still making their way in. Oh, we have someone saying hello from, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Yaida, Catalonia. I'm a Catalan and Occitan language speaker and activist at 1 a.m. Hi. Yeah, have a second dinner. It's 1 a.m. Why not?
Might need a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Hi from Guadalajara, Mexico. Awesome. And I apologize for the cockatiel noises in the background. I will be on mute during your talk. But you know how pets are when they realize you're on an important Zoom call. They need to make themselves known.
That's what I just said. There is a chihuahua running around at my feet.
All right. I think we can go ahead and get started. So I'll just make some quick housekeeping announcements. So hi, everyone. We are now on day, 6 of the Festival of Indigenous Languages. So this may be familiar to y'all. Just a reminder, please abide by the guidelines for festival behavior. In other words, be kind and respectful to everyone. Don't talk poorly of others. This is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube. So if you ask a question in the Q&A, just be aware that your name may appear on the recording or be live streamed. And we will not have interpretation for this session, so you don't have to worry about the interpretation feature. And I think that is all of the technical notes before we hand it over. So Aric, I am delighted to hand it to you to introduce our speaker today.
Jingari Nanyinari Aric. Hello, my name is Aric. I am a Kumbameri Ngugi man of the Yugambeh and Quandamooka people. Yugambeh is the Aboriginal language of the Gold Coast, Logan and Scenic Rim regions, and Jandai and Gawar are the languages of Stradbroke Island and Moreton Island of our people. Today we are situated on the Gold Coast, and I would like to begin by acknowledging our elders, past, present, and future, and the place of my people where we are speaking to you from today, right here on the east coast of Australia. To begin, I would like to introduce Candace Kruger, a Kumbameri Ngugi woman and a Yugambeh song woman, and most importantly, my mum. Candace is the founder and director of the Yugambeh Youth Choir, which she started in 2014, and is also the author of Yugambeh Talga, Music Traditions of the Yugambeh People, published in 2005. Recently, Candace was awarded the 2021 National Australian Society for Music Education Teaching Award for Excellence in Indigenous Music Education, and in 2016, the Yugambeh Youth Choir won the Queensland Reconciliation Award for Community. Candace has taught classroom music in both primary and secondary schools for over 25 years, and has just submitted her PhD thesis Yarrabul Giriba, Singing Indigenous Language Alive with Griffith University, and has recently been appointed the pedagogical leader for the Culturally Nourishing Schooling Project for the University of New South Wales. Before Candace begins our conversation today on Singing Indigenous Language Alive, we would like to play a short video for you. You Are, Call to Corroboree, sung by the Yugambeh Youth Choir. Can we see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Aric. Probably stop screen sharing it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably a little bit laggy, but I think that people certainly understood that we'll be talking about language and song today. And thanks, Aric, for the introduction to me as well. As you can see, I wanted Aric to be my host today because of his fabulous voice, and also that he has really been instrumental in assisting us with the Call to Corroboree Yawa, the song. So here on the Gold Coast, it's usually Yabru Kubul, a beautiful day. However, today, sadly, it is Yabru Jurum Durum. It's a rainy day. But despite this, I'm delighted to speak with you today about my journey of Aboriginal language revitalisation and specifically Yugambeh language. I begin by positioning myself into this narrative because this knowledge is uniquely Aboriginal and it is important contextually to understand where this knowledge began. I'm a Kumbameri Nugi Aboriginal woman, Southport and Moreton Island. My family ties it to Yugambeh Kondamuka. My work is based in Yugambeh, which is named for the Aboriginal language spoken in the regions of the Gold Coast, Logan and Scenic Rim areas of Southeast Queensland in Australia, which Aric has already said. I identify as a Yugambeh person alongside identifying and belonging to the Kumbameri Nugi tribes. As Aric mentioned, for the longest part of my career, I've been a music educator, teaching both primary and secondary classroom music. It was during this time in 2012 when I was in the US for the World Choir Games with a school choir, and two of my children were in that choir. Aric was 12 at the time. And it was there that I witnessed children of other nationalities really engaged with songs from other languages. While we were at these games as well, my parents came along as chaperones. My father is one of the elders in our community, and we purposefully hadn't told him that at one of our friendly concerts, we were going to sing the Australian national anthem in Yugambeh language. Just prior to this, in the middle of 2012, in November 2011, the national anthem in Yugambeh had been officially handed to Queensland Parliament, which was a first for Australia. And what we wanted to do was make sure that we took that piece with us as a performance piece. It wasn't part of our formalised set because we had, sent our set music through a year and a half prior, but it was certainly something that we could do in a friendly concert. And we took the opportunity to not tell my dad that we were going to sing heritage language. We were standing in an airport, which your airports are huge overseas, not so much here. And we were having this concert with hundreds of people watching us. And I knew that my dad was watching. And after I'd finished conducting the piece and the kids were on a break, I went over to ask him what he thought. And he wasn't there. And I had to say to my mum, "Where's Dad?" And she said, "Oh, your father will be back in a minute, just had something in his eye." And I realized that my dad was in tears. And when we talked about it later, it was tears for recognition of his language. It was tears for pride in hearing his language. It was tears for perhaps the thought of a brighter future in regards to the language that was spoken around him as a child, but not directly taught to him because of the situation of where Australia was at that time. My dad's 75 now, and it couldn't be prouder of the work that we do with the Yugambeh Youth Choir and the group that we have formed here. In 2012, I recognised that I already had the vehicle for learning Yugambeh. I just needed to actually activate it in a practical sense because I had already been on the journey of finding our songs and working out their translations and cultural meanings since my grandfather made me start this work half my life ago when I was 24. And he asked me to visit his sister who knew a song. So that journey, just a little background information here. In 1988, I was in year 11 in high school, and there was a language conference that happened here on the Gold Coast to discuss Bundjalung Yugambeh language chains. And one of the key linguists, Margaret Sharp, was there, and she had one of her PhD students collecting songs at that point in time. When her PhD student actually asked, "What Aboriginal songs do you have?" the people at the conference said, "We don't have any." And the reason that they said we don't have any is because they hadn't built trust at that point in time. Now, and also they knew that I was learning music and was likely to go on and do a music degree. So they were really waiting for me to come along. So by the time I was 23 and I'd finished my music degree and had completed my teaching degree, my grandfather and his two cousins, so Sam Levenge, Patricia O'Connor, and Yusola Best, sat me down and said, "You need to go and collect our songs and you need to write them down and you need to learn what they're all about. And we know someone who's got one." So they sent me straight away off to my grandfather's sister, and my grandfather came with me to visit Lottie Levenge. And so last year, in 2021, as the Australian Music Examinations Board national song, the song that I collected when I was 24, Morning Star and Evening Star, about Wagan and Malagan, the morning and the evening star, and their relationships to Sirius and Canopus and cultural and living knowledge that we learned through language, we actually used, with permissions from elders, we wrote and delivered this piece and that song as the national song for Australia to learn in an online orchestra. So you can certainly go and look at the Morning Star and Evening Star through Amy B Online Orchestra. It's the 2021 song. And all of the educational resources for you to have cultural permissions, for you to learn language, for you to learn about this narrative and to perform and play the song are all there ready for you in an educational free resource. You can also look at it on YouTube as well. So as I just jump back, when I spoke to you about the weather today, well, that's because when it rains, I internally sing a song passed down by my great-great-grandmother about one day when it was raining and the ship that was meant to provide goods to the Aboriginal community along the Nerang River. However, on this day, because it was raining, the captain wouldn't unload on the wharf, and that's how this little song about rain, a song which is mixed with Yugambeh and English, came about. Jurum, Jurum, tumble down, the wheelbarrow's broken, that Captain Whipton is a greedy fellow, we'll give him blankets. So what that's telling us is about the Aboriginal people at the time who were living along the mission, who were gathered together along the Nerang River, and about the provision of supplies given by the government. But what's not widely recognised is the fact that Aboriginal Yugambeh language was dropped into the beginning of this song. Jurum, 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 rain, rain. So as what I would like to engage with you today is a conversation about language that is utilised in song and how this gives us cultural revitalisation, living cultural knowledge, context of our language as well, and how we use that in our community. So what I'm going to talk to you about is learning Aboriginal culture through the songs that's contained within songs. So first of all, we need a little bit of background information. Songs are the vehicle for transporting cultural knowledge and as such ensure our cultural survival. In this context, they are also our approach for learning our heritage language. For when we learn the song, we learn language, but we also learn valuable cultural lessons. The contextualization of Aboriginal music is the very essence of its existence. When we redefine our understanding to acknowledge that Aboriginal music can be examined and explained as a holistic form of culture beyond the function of musical genre, we can look to a new dreaming, a modern articulation that welcomes all participants to enter the conversation and participate in the receiving of living culture. Consequently, through this vehicle, we learn language. So understanding Aboriginal music in this way can account for practice. It's an epistemology while drawing upon past, present, and future evidence for the sustainability and legacy of culture and language, as we learn from the weaving of our past, present, and future through song knowledge. Now that's quite a lot of information right there. But what does that actually mean? So I think I'll explain it in a practical sense. But before I do, I'm actually going to throw a question to Aric and ask him, Aric, when you sing the call to corroboree, how do you feel? What do you know? What did you learn?
So I'd say the call to corroboree, how do I feel? I definitely sort of feel a sense of pride when I sing that song. Usually when we perform, it's the first thing we sing. We typically start with silence and I sing out across sort of empty space, and I'm calling out to people. I'm calling out, come here, come and listen, come and join our sort of performance, our corroboree. It's a powerful song, and it definitely feels, I feel connected to sort of my cultural heritage. It's hard to describe because it's really sort of deep connection to my past, to my ancestors, I suppose.
And right there, what Aric has just told us is exactly what singing heritage language for the children here on the Gold Coast in Logan and Scenic Rim in our Yugambeh region, it's what it does. So let me tell you a little bit about the call to corroboree. So the call to Yawa corroboree, a Yugambeh Garama story, Gold Coast, Logan, Scenic Rims of Queensland, was actually recorded in 1965 by William Curtis. The melodic line and lyrics to the song have been passed down his family line orally since 1872, when his father and mother, non-Aboriginal people, first heard an unknown song sung over the sacred bull or bora grounds at Albert Park near Tamborine Village when they witnessed a corroboree. The music notation to the song was written down and passed to the Yugambeh Museum by Raymond Curtis, William's nephew, in 2003. The family were proud to have been caretakers of this unknown song for the local Aboriginal people. Within southeast Queensland, including Moreton Bay, anthropologists have uncovered and mapped no less than 108 corroboree sites where bull or bora rings are still or were situated. In addition to being observed as either single, pair or triple ring sites, sacred and private corroboree were known to have taken place, and public corroboree on these sites has been witnessed in Queensland by non-Aboriginal people since colonisation. With a view to recording this antiquity, witnesses began anecdotally recording Aboriginal people performing song and dance in early recollections and memoirs. Tom Petrie, in particular, in the early 1900s, wrote about a Brisbane corroboree with 500 Aboriginals on Petrie Creek. They came from all parts, some from the interior and Amity on Stradbroke Island as well. Historically, for the Yugambeh and Bundjalung people of southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, there were 3 bull ceremony types given to the Yugambeh and Bundjalung by our Dreamtime ancestors. The 3 brothers, Berang, Momon, and Yabrong, were these brothers, and that's one of our major Dreamtime stories. Berang gave us Yawa, Momon gave us Girang, and Yabrong, Jibrin, gave us Wagyong. Of these 3 brothers' corroborees, Berang's corroboree Yawa is the call corroboree type for all and is intended to be performed by everyone, including women and children. So what we've learnt straight away is that through the language that was passed down and the knowledge that's contained within this song, we're connected way back to our Dreamtime ancestors. On Yugambeh country, many public corroborees were witnessed by European settlers. However, of note was the corroboree sung, this one, heard by the Curtis family at the Albert Bora Albert River Bora Grounds near Tamborine Village in 1872. As a significant site, the Albert River Bora Grounds are the only recorded Aboriginal ceremonial site in southeast Queensland where 3 earth circles were joined by a pathway. Look, beyond the passing of Aboriginal corroboree practice for Aboriginal people of the region, an unnamed and unknown Yugambeh Aboriginal song heard by non-Aboriginal people in 1872 was gifted back to Yugambeh descendants in 2003, and it significantly unlocks knowledge of public Aboriginal corroboree practice, living cultural context, and use of Yugambeh language and the context of Yugambeh language for Yugambeh people. Although unknown to the European listeners, the song recalled, and the song that you've heard Aric sing and the choir sing, is a call that invites everyone to listening together for the Yawa, the corroboree for all. Wa, Yawa ya, Yawa ya, Yawa ya, Yawa ya, Yawa ya, Wulya, 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 Wulya. All come and give at the big practice. Look, I examined this song and it took me quite some time, and I used the Sharp's collection of Yugambeh language, my own familial Yugambeh language knowledge, consultation with elders, their living memory of language use, and Curtis's evidence. And the song call in this context is an open invitation to all listeners to participate in public performance. Although it is most unlikely originally intended for merging cultures, this song was reactivated with permission from elders and performed by Aric, the first Yugambeh male, who in 2016 woke up this call and reactivated the call to Yawa for the first time in well over 144 years. The call to Yawa has progressed from an unknown song to a fully contextualized piece that is now a well-accepted, reclaimed and resung Yugambeh call to gather people together. The circumstances of the call to Yawa's survival and the placement of this song heard on the side of the only 3 known Bora circles on Yugambeh country speaks deeply to myself. Aric said that it speaks deeply to him, it speaks deeply to family, to other Aboriginal community members and to Yugambeh elders. For here in this song is a long ago connection to our Dreamtime ancestors and evidence of spirituality, law, language and ceremony found in one place through one song. I won't talk about it now, but I could seriously talk to you for hours about the form and structure of Aboriginal music that we can learn from this one piece. Not something that we'll have that conversation about now. In a similar way, there's a children's song that we've had passed down as well. Weg, weg, malu, jubbin, jubbin, na you. That teaches language and living cultural practice through song. In 2004, Elder Moira Coolwell was actually sitting at a NAIDOC ceremony in Brisbane, and she just turned to the lady that was beside her and sang her this song because it evoked the performances that she was seeing at the time, evoked a memory of a song from long ago. Now, what this means, wega wega malu, is when the women are calling out to the children, where are you? Because the women had gone into the bush gathering food and had taken the children with them. And the children had to reply, jubbum, jubbum, yayun, grubs, granny, we're collecting, we're gathering grubs. When I sang this song to Elder Auntie Rose, who lives on Stradbroke Island, and I wanted Rose's thoughts on the song, I only sang the first line and Rose sang the actual second part of the song back to me. So I knew that this song then had actually travelled right across our region, from all the way out at Bow Desert in the Scenic Rim, all the way back across to Stradbroke Island and the islands and the regions out on the bay. And Rose would say, well, actually, for me, this song, as we would actually travel from the land across to Macintosh Island, which is surfers paradise in the Gold Coast. And we would actually have to walk all the way down to the beach. And first we would have to dig our feet in the sand, just like this. And you use your toes to grab the hard rock that you feel, which is actually a yugari. A yugari is an Aboriginal word for the pipi, for the little mussel that you get in the sand. You need 2 of those, you smash them together. You can eat part and you can bait part, and then you can catch fish. Then you walk back up to the sand dune and you pick the newly plant, the pig face, and you can eat the bulb of that. It's a sweet treat. And then you can walk back down on the other side of the sand dunes, and depending on where you are, you can peel back the paper bark from the bottom part of the tree and you've got grubs, the jubbum, we're collecting the grubs. And so you can then take that paper bark and those grubs and your fish and you can place it in Weber in the fire and you can cook yourself a meal. In this one little song, wega wega ma lil, jubbum jubbum yayun, we learn language, but contextually, we learn living culture, we learn knowledge, we learn information that we need if we needed to live off the land, if we need to survive, or where we can get our food sources from. Aric, you've learnt these songs. What comment would you like to make about learning the cultural context of learning songs?
So this particular song, there's a lot sort of in, well, very little. But I think that it's a call and response typically between the granny and the kids, and it actually works quite well when we're teaching young kids to sing language for the first time, because it's a call and response and because it's sort of upbeat. Little kids pick it up really quick.
Yeah, it's an easy way in. It's truly one of our easiest ways in. It's one of the very first songs that we teach, because kids can actually sing it back to me when I sing wagga wagga ma lil. They sing wagga wagga ma lil, and then they respond jump and jump now you. When we perform as a choir group, it's a really easy icebreaker as well for that interaction between the audience and the choir. So I will often start it, or I'll ask someone who's a little bit older to start it, and we contextualize and say what it is. It's certainly something that we have learned through starting the Yugambeh Youth Choir. So this idea that I really wanted people to come on a song journey with me, I actually just wanted to sing songs live, because I had to start collecting little songs, and I'd been doing it for a very long time, and I was a classroom music teacher, but I just was wondering if anybody might like to learn the songs with me. And so I started the choir in around about end of 2014, early 2015, and it took 6 months to seriously get 1 or 2 children to actually turn up to choir, but I turned up every week. And then after a little while, kids started to turn up and families started to come. So we learnt quite a lot about our community through those people that participated in choir. Now, really, what actually happened was that we began a choir, and I started telling some of my colleagues, my teaching colleagues, they would say, oh, how's your choir going on? Because I'm a community volunteer. I just turn up to a space that we were able to obtain for free use, hire of a hall. And I started saying to a colleague, well, actually, we've got a couple of foster kids that come along and a couple of other kids that come along, and they're really starting to talk and communicate, but they're actually starting to talk about choir being their second home. And all we're doing is really learning a few songs, and we're learning a little bit of language, and we're learning some interesting language. Like, for example, one of the songs we sing is ning, 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 yeah. And we actually learn ning, ning, shh, shh is to be quiet. And some of the kids started taking that into school, and they started saying ning, ning, shh, shh, be quiet in school, rather than actually, and one of the boys told me that one of the schools out at Yugambeh, the teacher actually started saying ning, ning in the classroom instead of be quiet. So what I realized is that we were having a wider impact on community at the time. And so I began to measure this. So I hadn't studied for a very long time. So I went to Griffith University, and they said I really should start maybe a Master's of Arts Research. And my topic that I chose to do, and the project ended up being called In the Bora Ring Yugambeh Language and Song Project. And I was able to measure the self-efficacy and give an agency to the voice of the Jarjum, the children in the choir, to actually speak about what learning language meant to them through song. And so we were able to measure, or I was able to measure through what they said, 5 benefits. One was identity, that through singing my heritage language, I connect to who I am. I don't just connect to who I am, I connect to the people that are around me. Some of these people are my second, my third, my fourth cousins. I've learned family that I didn't know. Also, we had kids who live on Yugambeh country who might not be Yugambeh. They might be Kamilaroi or a different region, or Darug from New South Wales, but they've been born here and grown up here. What those kids started saying was, well, Miss Candy, we learn language through choir, but you've actually made me go, well, if Jingari is hello here, what is hello in Kamilaroi? Oh, it's Yama. So now I say Yama. So they turn up to choir and I say Jingari and they say Yama. And they've started to want to know, if I'm going to learn Yugambeh, how can I also learn some words from my other language and from where my family are from as well. So we have identity and we have language acquisition. What I didn't expect was well-being. I knew that choir always made me feel good. It's a Friday afternoon, I'm volunteering my time. We also volunteer our time on a Wednesday afternoon. Now we have choir in 2 places so that kids don't necessarily, families don't always have to travel to me. We go out to them, hence Aric being a host, because he's picking up that as he learns to become a teacher. He's also starting to help out with choir as well. And what we discovered was that I knew that I felt better after choir. I knew that I could turn up feeling grumbly on a Friday afternoon. Really, last thing that I want to do is take a rehearsal. But when I leave choir, I feel good. The kids arrive. This is like their other family. This is their cultural community family where they learn cultural lessons, they learn language, but also we like each other because we're all invested in this one project together. So there's lots of hugs, there's lots of high fives. There's kids then say, when I leave choir, I feel good. My voice might feel scratchy when I arrive, but I feel confident when I leave. Also, when we go and perform, I'm not so sure that I have the confidence to stand on stage and I'm a little unsure, but after I feel great, I feel powerful. So then I ask beyond that, why do you feel powerful when you sing the songs of Yugambeh or the songs of cultural language? Kids will say, they're now talking about sociocultural capital. They start saying, because the people in that audience didn't know anything about this culture or my culture or Aboriginal culture until I taught them. And then they come and speak to me after because they want a photo with me. They want to talk about the songs. They want to tell me how proud they are, that they've learned something. And also the kids in my choir can then take that knowledge back to school and they teach this information at their school as well. So that was our fourth benefit. And then I witnessed youth leadership. I witnessed, like Aric, being really probably a 15, 16-year-old fella, helping a 6-year-old little boy or little girl confidently walk onto a stage. Aric could probably even tell you he'll even recall having to pick up kids and help them go onto stage because they were so little, or holding hands with other people. And whilst I might have seen that from the top of my choir to the bottom of my choir, because we've never said there's an age limit. We've really just said when you're in school, when you're sort of 4 or 5, you can join choir. But the 2 and 3-year-olds run around and just listen and absorb information. And then we also then saw the 12 and 13-year-olds go, oh, well, I can help the 8-year-olds. Oh, if the oldest kid can help the youngest kid, I can help the kids that are in the middle. So we've seen this benefit of youth leadership all through wanting to learn language. So I really spoke about that, and that paper, that thesis isn't a fully published thesis, but you can certainly see it on a university website anywhere and read that thesis. But what's really important here is that I'm actually about to go and, 5.5 years later, speak to the judge on the children who are now young adults like Aric, and there's about 8 of them. They're all off at university. They're all speaking about what learning language through song has given me as an identity, as a person ready to step out into the world. And we're about to measure that and talk about that, and even talk about cultural revitalization and what they might like to do for language and heritage and their own cultural identity for others moving forward in community for themselves. So what's really important to note is that through choir, we don't necessarily learn language formally. Rather, we learn the language that comes in songs and then we apply it to everyday use. So, it's raining outside and I said to you, it immediately evokes the jurum jurum, the rain rain. But we've been singing jungara, jungara, mobe, mope, mobe, mope, bye, bye, bye. We've been singing pelican, pelican, dusty moorhen, Howie's tail flicks. Again, there's an entire narrative about food sources in the Numbamba Valley with this song, but there's also the jungara, the pelican. There's an entire songline chain and a pelican corroboree that goes along with this song as well. But I now can't see a pelican and say pelican. My head immediately goes jungara. When we see koala, borobi, because that was the mascot for the Commonwealth Games in 2018. I also wrote a little tiny children's song about Borobi as well and protecting him. And I'm pretty certain that most of the kids in choir will see a pelican and their brain goes jungara, or they see a koala and it goes Borobi. We talked about the action of ning ning shh shh. But there's another song, Yela walu yanbalela, where 2 men are walking and they're coming to get a bride, a wife. So we're talking about traditional skin marriage lines. But when we sing it, but when we first started, so that I could break it up for kids to understand, we'd go Yela walu, which is where are you going? Yanbalela, and Yambalela is walking. So we'd actually do the action Yanbalela. And so by putting action in, I can pretty much say to the choir every now and then when I'm checking language words, I can say, oh, who can tell me what Yanbalela means? And you get walking, it just pops straight into their head. So we contextualize the learning of language through choir and through songs. So, I've pretty much spoken for quite some time about what we do and how we do. So I'm just going to throw it out there, Anna or Aric, have there been any questions so far that anybody would like to know about what it is that we do?
We do have one question. They've just asked, is Yugambeh still spoken as a language?
So there are a few native speakers who are very, very old. It is definitely a language in revitalization. The choir is one of those projects. I formally started through the Yugambeh Museum Language and Heritage Centre because I needed a place that was able to help me start my idea. We've also now formally incorporated ourselves as the Yugambeh Youth Aboriginal Corporation as we move language forward and choir forward as its own entity in community. But there are definitely some older speakers of language. It's interesting that when we talk about this, so my own father, when we won the Queensland Reconciliation Awards in 2016, we had to fly to Townsville. And so I invited him to come with me as an elder who was supporting what we were doing in community. And I was writing out my speech and I wanted the first part of it in case we won. I was hoping that we would. But I wrote out my first part of the speech in Yugambeh language and I was practicing it. And I really thought that my dad didn't necessarily know a lot of language because that's kind of what he said to me along the way. And then he was saying, oh, no, you need to say that word like this with a guttural sound here. And no, that one's more of a like the sound moving forward. So all of a sudden I was evoking memories in his mind of language that he'd learned as a child. And then he was able to say to me, oh, actually, as a kid, so Pop would have these jars and he would put the sea animal creatures in them because our family, the Lavinge family had all the oyster banks and we were the oyster farmers of Moreton Bay, and they would have all these sea creatures in the jars. And when the men would row the boat over to the mainland to get the workers or the fishermen, they might sometimes bring back some chocolate money or some lollies, a little bag of lollies. And if you could actually say what the animals in the jars were in language as well as in English, you'd get a lolly. So there was these subtle ways when Aboriginal language was shut down and not allowed to be spoken anymore in Australia for some time. There were these subtle ways that language was still taught. Bedtime whispers, songs and lullabies, learning your animals in a jar. And I thought that I also didn't necessarily know any language myself. And until I was in grade 12 and I'd gone on this excursion to Stradbroke Island and we were walking down to the beach and we were doing a cross section and the science teacher said something like, let's all dig up these pippies. And he was talking about what I'd talked about, the little mussel in the sand. And I said, oh, Sarah, that's really wrong. It's not called a pippy, that's called a yugari. And he said, no, this is called a pippy. I don't know what you're talking about. And I nearly had a fight with my science teacher and got in trouble. But I realized then that I actually knew Aboriginal language that had been taught to me as a child, but had just been dropped into my everyday conversation. And so I didn't know what I didn't know until all of a sudden I was confronted with, oh, there's actually a different word for this. There's actually an English meaning. So there have been ways that we've been able to keep language alive along the way. And there are certainly some much older speakers, but what we've been practicing and learning about Yugambeh language is not so much that there is a formal structure to follow, but what's important is the prefixes and suffixes of our language. So when I come across an old song that may be written down somewhere, or an elder has, or someone has passed down a song, I'm actually looking for the places, like for example, the pim is the little soldier bird, but Pimpima, the R sound on the end, is the place of the soldier bird. So Pimpima is actually one of our suburbs here, hidden in plain sight. Of, there's probably 100, I'm throwing a random number out there, but there's probably 180 suburbs in the Gold Coast, Logan and Scenic Rim, of which around about 90 of them are actually Yugambeh words. So people in our area think, oh, I don't know any Aboriginal culture, I can't see any, I don't know of anything around here. Well, it's actually all in front of you. We have suburbs of Kumbaba, Pimpama. The second that there's an on the end of a word, that there's no way that word was an English word in the first place. It actually has the place name meaning of somewhere that you're going to. So in choir, we discuss all of this information. I have the kids that turn up every week and go, oh, I went out to Ilanbar. Do you know what that is? And I'll say, yeah, well, let's look it up. Oh, Ilanbar is the place of the bat. So there are different ways to learn this fabulous information. I can see that there's another question. Can someone read that one to me?
So we've got two. We've got one here that says, how did you go about recruiting people to join the choir? Was it difficult at all to get people to join it first?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that one. Absolutely, yes, it was. So this was an unknown, and there had not been a revitalization practice like this tried before or done anywhere before. In fact, if anything, you could probably see some Aboriginal men doing what people consider to be traditional Aboriginal dance at like the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary at the theme parks or something like that. I don't like to use the words traditional or contemporary. I like to talk in terms of living culture, the cultural practice of now, the cultural practice of what knowledge we need to do to move things along. So when I had the idea and wanted to start the choir, I approached a school and a university that were in two separate locations, and they loved the idea and said, we'll give you a free hire of a room, 1 hour a week. And I took a keyboard along with myself. One of them had a piano. Because I'm a music educator, I also wanted to make sure that we were vocally warming up and doing great vocal warm-ups, and I have then turned those into language counting. For example, instead of going 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. We go yabru, yabru, bula, yabru, yabra, bula, bula, yabru, bula, yabru. We do it in counting. We do it in language. So we've incorporated those. But in terms of starting choir, so I sat around for the first 6 months. We got 1, then maybe 2. We pushed an information flyer out to all the schools, out to the universities, word of mouth, and it just took a little bit of time, and it wasn't difficult, it just took time, and I just had to be prepared to sit there and wait for people to come. Honestly, once people started coming, we've had up to 45 kids in choir, aged from 5 to 19, and we have sung, probably our biggest performance was the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games in Aboriginal language to 1.3 billion viewers around the world, which was pretty fantastic. We've done national songlines now, but because of COVID, it has hit us badly, and Australia, as you know, has locked itself away, and states have locked themselves away from other states. So what we're doing, and what you can see by the video that you've seen, is we've taken those little moments of opportunities to actually take the songs that we've been singing for years and go and record them and actually make videos and make educational resources, which on yugambehyouth.com.au is our website, which we are working on right now, and you'll be able to download our free educational resources and see how we're doing it here in Australia and how that might be able to help you wherever you are. And I have to look at what that new model will be now, because out of COVID, what we will do this year, but there are certainly young families that are contacting us now saying, can we please come and join choir? I have maintained over 7-8 years now being a community volunteer with my time, and we have maintained that choir is free, and we have been able to also maintain free hire of a school, or there are 2 different schools where we get free hire of their school hall. That has been how we've been able to do this. Is there another question?
Yep, we've got one. Can you tell us about some of your performances and the responses you get from the audiences, Indigenous and non-Indigenous audiences?
So when we first started performing, so this is like probably a twofold thing here. When we first started performing, we only had 3 songs. We would perform for all of 5 minutes, and the kids were really, really new. And when people would say, would you like to perform at our school fete, or would you like to perform somewhere else? Like, so it really just started with word of mouth. So the school that we have rehearsal at said, we've got a multicultural day. Would you please perform? And I said, okay, well, we'll give it a go. We sang for 4 minutes. From that, a parent that was there doing something else said, would you like to come and perform at another event? And then we also had a couple of people in community advocating for what we were doing, going, oh, there's this National Aboriginal Celebration Day here. Would you guys like to come and perform? We always said straight away, hey, look, we've only got 3 to 5 minutes of performance. We don't have very much. And that was perfectly fine and really well accepted. And people literally would come up to us and say, oh my goodness, Aboriginal kids singing in Aboriginal language, this is gold. This is amazing. I'm learning so much. But there was a little error that I was making. I didn't realize that people actually wanted the narrative behind the songs. We were just hopping up and singing the songs. We also got to perform at, like the Gold Coast show, just local events. So lots of local events, and we would have been by 2017, 2018, performing twice a month at local events. We don't ever perform and have never performed in school time because kids go to school. We perform and we like to do things on the weekend. And, you know, fortunately with the Commonwealth Games coming to our region in 2018, we got to do quite a number of performances and very high profile ones as well. But what happened as we were transitioning into these more high profile, you know, conference type, opening or conference type events, because lots of conferences were coming to the Gold Coast, people started saying to us, coming up after and saying, oh, I'd really like to know what that song is about. So we realized, well, I realized, and the kids also started saying it too, oh, people are asking what the song's about. So Aric mentioned to you that, you know, he might hop up and sing the call to Corbury, but we use that as a powerful engagement tool to start the song. Or if I don't have him or someone that's confident to sing it, I might start with the Wega Wega Marlil. After the song is sung, we then tell the narrative to the audience. Sometimes it feels strange that you sing a 1 minute song, but you speak for 3 minutes after. But the engagement with the audience, learning a piece of Aboriginal language, learning Aboriginal cultural living knowledge, and contextualizing it to the land that they're literally sitting on at that point in time is immeasurable. It is that sociocultural capital that we're talking about, and people go away and talk about it. So that was really that point. I only had a handful of songs from Yugambeh Youth, the book that I had, the very early manuscript that I wrote that then got published into a book in 2005. I only had a few songs. The kids then started saying to me, you know, after they'd done 15 performances, well, what's next? What's the next song? And I just went, what do you mean? And they said, well, we want some more songs to sing. We're good at those ones and we do well and we perform them. So that began my journey, much bigger journey of song investigation, of trying to track down older songs that people may have recorded in different places, in newspaper articles, in earlier academic works, through anthropologists, talking to other elders, and really working through the narratives, the language, the knowledge that's embedded in songs to actually make sure that I'm bringing something through. We'll be publishing and doing a video of Yugambeh Lullaby, A Blessing to be Sung Over Babies, in the next 6 months. And we'll also be working on a song, Whereby Fire, which is not just bringing the fire to life, but it's actually about the process of what you have to gather and what the language teaches you about all the different parts of nature that you have to gather and what you use fire for before you blow on the Whereby Fire to bring it to life. So this is where we're going next. Any other questions?
So, yeah, the next one, someone said, hi, I'm from Jeju Island, Korea. I apologize if I've pronounced that incorrect. In my island, people have started making music notes for our folk songs. Do you already have music notes for the songs that you are teaching? So talk about.
So as in musical notes? Yes. So some we do, some we don't. So there are different ways that I have to work. So first, if I'm really, really lucky, like Yawa Call to Corbury that you heard Aric sing, that was passed down with both a musical score and language. So that was what I would consider to be a fully intact, very old song. However, when it was passed down, it really didn't make too much sense because it had wah, 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 ya. And I couldn't understand what the extra W was for. And then I realized that something that had been passed down orally over years and years and years and years had shifted on one sound at the beginning. And once I was able to unlock what that first letter and change of sound was and how it was sung, I then was able to contextualize what the song is. Another song, so that what I mentioned earlier, the 2021 online orchestra for AMEB, Morning Star and Evening Star. So when I went to visit Auntie Lottie when I was 24, Lottie said, I can give you, so this was a song that I was taught as an 8-year-old. We're literally talking about the early 1900s. She said, my grandmother passed it down for me. And but she said, I can't remember the song anymore. I can remember the language. I can remember the English and what it means, but I just don't have the music anymore. But what I wish for the future is that someday you'll rewrite the music to this and have this storyline sung alive again. So when I finally got an opportunity to rework and rewrite Auntie Lottie's song Morning Star and Evening Star, I wrote it as a song that actually paid homage to everything that how this song had been passed down. So it was, many years she sings of her country, a whisper, a lullaby, in little ears she tells a story to stars bright nearby. So it's in English for a little while, and then it begins to drop in Morning Star, Mulligan, and Wagan, Evening Star, until you get to the last part of the song and you've got to sing all in Yugambeh. So it's a way of inviting someone to learn our narrative. It's a way of inviting someone to learn this song star line, this song line, but it's also an engaging way of getting into music. And then there's the last way that I work, the third way, where I, as a songwoman, which is not a name that I gave myself, elders started calling me their songwoman in community. And this third way is recognizing that we need to learn language, and that we need to, there are lessons and narratives that we still need to learn that we may no longer have a song for, or there might not have been a song for that at the time. So I will compose songs in language, and they're all in Yugambeh language, and we learn what the meanings are. Sometimes I might also put in Yugambeh language, then I might put the English after it as well, so that we re-sing it. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it's also helping people learn language. So there's really those three different ways that I work when I'm putting language together for songs. Any other last questions? Because I'm looking at them as well.
Yeah, well, someone's asked, is there anywhere we can see the video after the talk? So the one we played earlier.
Yeah, so I will send the link to Anna, who might send that link out, because that link is actually a private video that we just share out when necessary. So I'll share that link and allow Anna to share that to participants to show, not probably on a, you're more than welcome to show that to colleagues and to look at it for yourself. It's probably not something that we want necessarily published worldwide at this point in time, until we drop it onto our Yugambeh Youth website. And the reason is because it will come with, I don't want it to be taken out of context with no knowledge of what it really means. So it will also come with a full educational resource that you could download, see the song, have the cultural permissions as to where you do it, and also and how you can perform that song with all the knowledge behind it. And that's, for me, really the most important thing. And that's the work out of my PhD. And that's my hopes and wishes for the future. I've developed a song framework, a way that when we look at Indigenous knowledges, we can't just, and when we look at Indigenous songs, we can't just look at the score, we can't just look at the music, we can't just look at the words. We actually have to have the permissions from community to perform the song. We actually have to have the protocols of how you perform the song, where you can perform the song. We need the narrative, we need the language. We also need to really understand that, you know, if I'm talking about a revitalization of a language, I might write Yawa as, you know, YAWAHR, but you could find it in so many other different places written a little bit differently, but it's just how the person wrote it down at that time. So I even include alternative spellings and alternative ways to say a word, so that because I don't want anyone to think that they've got the language wrong, because this is what I'm finding at this point in time and the elders that I'm speaking to. But in a slightly different region, just, you know, 100 k's north, they might just say it a little bit differently, or there might be a different family line here in Yugambeh that actually went, well, when we grew up, Granny used to say it this way, and that's perfectly fine too. There's no right or wrong in what we're doing. It's just making sure that everybody understands that there are multiple and accepting ways of how the language might have been written down. Also really acknowledging that the linguists or the anthropologists or the people with just an interest, the school teachers in language, may have used whatever nationality ear they had at the time to actually phonetically write that language down. So, you know, I acknowledge that as well. So my hopes and wishes for the future are that people will look at songs in this way, in this context, as a revitalization tool for language, as a tool for living culture, and songs are a vehicle for all of that wonderful, wonderful gift that we have in our community. Any other questions?
We have a question about where, or if you can share the link to your paper on the choir benefits, so your master's.
Yes. So I will probably see if we can find that, or I'll share all that information. We'll pop it and I'll share it with Endangered Languages Project, and they can share that information. But for me, I think right now it's probably Balgawanya. Thank you. Ganiman Anya, at this point in time, I feel that my tale is told. I look forward to speaking to any of you at any point in time, or really having conversations And I'm really happy to share if you want help in doing something like what I've done. I'm really happy to help you wherever you are in the world, because this is so incredibly worthwhile.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Candace. This was a really wonderful learning experience for all of us, I think. And thank you for bringing music to this talk. It's a pleasure always to hear music, but even more to learn language through music. So thank you. And Aric, thank you for your wonderful hosting job. I love seeing family endeavors in language revitalization. I think we all do. So everyone, thank you so much for your insightful questions. Thank you for being here. And we will see you tomorrow for the talk from Irma Tsiren Sokop, working in Cachiquel in Guatemala. That talk will be in Spanish with English interpretation, so we'll tell you how to turn on the interpretation. But let's have a huge round of virtual applause for Candace and Aric for being here today and sharing their knowledge. Thank you.
No, thank you for having us, and thank you for listening to the small things that we're doing in our little part of the world.
Oh, big things. Thank you so much, Candace. Thank you, Aric. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Bye.